And welcome to another interesting session, another Power BI data analytics session. And the title of our session today, of our topic today, is use of Power BI data sets. Our special guest is Kolade Akinbamijo. And so just to mention quickly who we are and the people behind these webinars. So your BizEdge and MHS, we are the ones powering this webinar. It happens every week, every Sunday. We try our best, non-fail, to always have it. We've been running this series since 2020, the COVID year. That's one of the things that at least we took away from the COVID year. So your BizEdge is a training and consulting company in Nigeria. Anything related to Microsoft Excel training, Power BI, financial modeling, SQL too, and we also have started Python. So you can rely on us. And the thing about us is we have this approach of training that it's continuous. We believe that you just coming for a class training, even if it's for 2 months, 1 year, 6 months, we all did 5 year, 4 year, 3 years undergraduate degrees. How many of us remember what we learned? So how much more when you do? Now imagine that compared to 2 days, 3 days classes. You will find out that it's what happens after the class that matters. So we always try to have this platform, this structure where we keep, allowing our participants, our trainees to keep applying, learning, practicing and tasks. This is one of them, this webinar. So we also have a Canadian entity, sister company, MHS. So in case you have anyone in Canada or who prefers to learn, engage our Canadian entity. And to the main part of today's session, which is our special speaker and what we are going to experience for the next for 55, 57 minutes. So Kolade is a data analytics professional. I'm going to share his LinkedIn profile anyway, so you can connect. I hope that's okay. I think I need to take permission. I just assume that people like that. But is that good for me to share your LinkedIn profile?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, all right. So I'll put the link in the chat. So it's someone who has worked across different industries and also different countries. So, and I know you will learn a lot from him, and more most especially at the end, he's going to share some insights, about his journey and his advice. So you should stay to the end so that you get to even hear that. And the way the session will be is that once I hand over to him, he's going to start. And if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. I'll be monitoring it so that I will draw his attention to them at the end. And also, if you have any concerns, or maybe you are not hearing us, or you just want to point out anything, feel free to put in the chat box. I am monitoring it. So I'm going to hand over to our special guest. I'll turn off my camera. And welcome, Kolade, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Michael. So for today, or for this session, I'll be talking about Power BI datasets and how to use them efficiently across various dashboards. So I'll just share a little presentation that I did. I hope you all can see my screen, but just let me know if you can't see whatever it is I'm presenting. Okay, yeah. Basically, as a data analyst, you get multiple requests from different people to use data in different ways. There are situations where you might have a request from maybe your accounting department and maybe your sales department, and you discover that some of the things they're asking for are pretty much similar. So maybe they're asking for how much in sales they made for a particular month or particular year. And you probably find yourself developing similar dashboards 2 or 3 times. Sometimes you have to write a script multiple times, even though the script is going to give you the same answer. So basically, Power BI datasets are a way of having a singular or universal datasets on which other dashboards can rely on. It has multiple advantages. So as I earlier on mentioned, you have one dataset that can respond to multiple requests from different people. And then if you're working in a team with less experienced members, that are maybe not too familiar with Power BI modeling or writing complex SQL or PySpark scripts, they could just simply rely on your data sets and just go ahead with the dashboard development. In addition, if there are changes to maybe business processes, or if there's a new request for a data point, you can simply make the modification to that data set, and that can reflect automatically in all the dashboards that are relying on it. And finally, if you're working with a big organization and people should you have people who should have certain limits to how much access to dashboards in the company, you can actually develop the RLS implementation, the row-level security implementation on that singular data set, and that would just spread across all the dashboards that have been developed. So in the presentation I have here is just a simple diagram of how a typical Power BI data set is implemented. First of all, you have the data engineering aspect where you combine the various sources. So maybe it's a SharePoint list, an Azure data warehouse or Synapse workspace, or you're pulling data from the net or from an Excel sheet. You do all that dirty work, bring it together into a singular Power BI data set. And then the various dashboards connect to that data set, and then they pull the data and whatever analysis needs to be done on those dashboards is carried out. For this session, we will go through a very simple model. I'll be using the AdventureWorks dataset. I'll build a simple model and publish it to the Power BI app workspace. And then we'll have different dashboards that will connect to it, and we'll see how everything comes together in this presentation. So I'll start out by working from the Azure Synapse workspace. I'll just switch my presentation to the Azure Synapse workspace right now. Okay, so basically the Azure Synapse workspace is like a combination of different aspects of services that Microsoft provides. So we have the SQL aspect of it. We have the data warehouse. We can also run machine learning models within the Synapse workspace. But for this particular presentation, we're just focusing on pulling these data sets into a Power BI model. So the Azure AdventureWorks data, I don't know if any of you is familiar with it, but it consists of a sales data set. So they're making a number of sales, and then we have some other data points that are attached to it, such as the customer, the salesperson, the location. So different data points that you find in a typical sales data set. Now, I'll start out with working with the sales data set itself, because my intention is to try to build a star schema with the sales data set being the center of, or being the fact table for the star schema. And in order to bring the data, or in order to pull the data from Azure Synapse into the Power BI model, I'm going to develop views of this Parquet files. The Parquet files themselves contain the various information or various data that we're looking for. So looking at sales, for the sales fact table, we have the sales detail and also the sales header. Now I'm going to combine both data sets because as much as possible, I want to ensure that I develop an efficient model. And for a star schema to be efficient, you just need one fact table. And to do this, it's advisable to combine the sales details, sales details data, and sales header. So I'll just start off here and create my view by combining the two data sets. Okay, so basically, if I run this, first of all, we'll be able to see the various columns in the sales detail data. And as you can see, we have the sales order ID, the sales order detail ID, carrier tracking number, quantity, the order quantity, the product ID, special offer, unit price discount, line total, the row GUID, and the modified date. For the intent and purposes of this particular presentation, I think I'll focus just on the product ID, the order quantity, the unit price discount. So those fields, I'll bring them in. Sales order ID. And I like, whenever I'm creating a model, I try to ensure that the names are as readable as possible, because when you're deploying your model, you want it to be in such a way that data analysts, other data analysts that might want to work with your model can easily read whatever it is you developed. So as we have sales order ID as one word here, I'll just separate them out. This will encourage easy readability for other users. Then I know I also mentioned order quantity. Then unit price discount. Okay. Okay, I think instead of unit price discount, I think I'll just use unit price instead, because I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. Now those are the items that I'll pick, or the columns I'll pick from sales details. If I were to check sales header, so some of the items we need from sales header, we'll have things like the order ID, the order dates, and the due dates, as well as the shipping date. Because for I don't think we had those details. Yes, we didn't have those details in sales line. So I'll have to bring those in from sales header. Dates as order date. I'll drop due date, so I'll just go with ship date. Okay. Now, in order to be able to combine both the header and details data sets, we'll have to use a common key between them, which is the sales order ID. So I'll just copy this and bring it here and use an inner join. Now, after using the inner join, I'll also have to bring in the alias. So for sales details, I'll use maybe SD as the alias. For sales header, I'll use SH. And let me just run this to be sure that it's working efficiently. Okay, so we have an ambiguous sales order ID field. Okay, yes. So here I can just bring in, I think I'll just use the alias for all of them. Okay, and all right, so we have this working. Next thing I'm going to do is to create the view. I guess I'll call this sales fact table. And I'll use this database for Power BI datasets. I'll pick that as the database I'll use for this. And let me run this. Yes, so I have my sales fact table created. So we know that the sale has been made, but there are some other data points we'll be looking into as well. A good example would be the salesperson data, for instance. So we want to have an idea of who made the sale. So if I just pull this into the workspace, so this particular data set has items like business entity ID, territory ID, sales quota, bonus, commission, sales year to date, sales made last year. I'm just looking through this data set to try and see if we can make much sense of it. Because right now we can't, this particular data set doesn't have the name of the salesperson in particular. So in order to do that, we'll have to bring in another table. Guessing that will probably be, actually, I think there's a person table as well. Let me just check. Okay, yeah, that way we have it. So if I check what's inside the person table, okay, once again, I have the business entity ID, I have the first name, middle name, last name. Okay, so I can actually combine the salesperson table and the person table to be able to get that information out. So basically, I'm going to do another join, probably go with inner join as well. Now use alias P for person and SP for salesperson. Then I'll be joining both tables on the business entity ID. Okay, so for this, let's say we want to bring in things like sales quota, for instance. What else? Oh, yes, the person's name as well. So first name, last name. I think I'll just combine them into one word. Then for good measure, I'll probably bring in the business entity ID as well. Although I'm not sure we'll need it, but I'll just bring it in just in case. Okay. So we'll create this as a view as well. Create view salesperson as. Okay, so that's successfully run. Then now that I think about it, when I created this sales fact table, I didn't bring in any field to identify the salesperson, or rather to be able to link with the salesperson. So I think if I check the header table, there should be a salesperson field there. Let me just copy it here and run it. So scrolling through the header table. Okay, so we have salesperson ID. Aha, no wonder. So recall that I mentioned that we might need the business, we might need an ID field for the salesperson. We are definitely going to need it because we need a way of linking the salesperson to the fact table. So okay, there we go. And I'll just change this to Walter. Incorrect syntax there is. Oh, I forgot to put a comma here. Okay. Yeah, so that has run successfully. Now, I also know that whenever we are setting things, we might need like a product table, for instance. So let me see, where is that? Okay, here we go. We have the product table here. So we have things like the product ID, the product name, product number. This will definitely have a product ID field in the sales details table as well. So if I check to see what fields we need, so we need the product ID, the product name, and also the product cost. So I think that would be the standard. I think there's a field called standard cost field. Yeah, there it is. So okay. So I'll also create this as a view as well. All right. Then I believe there should be a product ID field in all right. Now, considering the fact that we also have multiple dates, or we have dates that we're working with, we also need a date table. So I believe we have that here. Okay, we have a date market file. But before I create the view, let me just check what's inside, so we even know what and what we need from it. Okay, we have a fiscal year field, a calendar year, calendar month number, and date. All right, so I'll just rename some of this. Well, so that is, as I mentioned earlier, it's very easy for other users to read it. Okay, so before proceeding, I want to load everything we have so far into Power BI, so we even have an idea of how it looks like. So I'll just switch to my Power BI page, or my Power BI app rather. Okay, so if I go to get data and go to more, so I just Synapse SQL. I have this server link here. Okay, so we have all the views rather that we've created so far. I'll bring them in. Okay, so it has loaded them. Let me just check if it has created any keys. Oh, it already has. So it has created a link between the sales table and the product table. And we have salesperson and date table left. For it to go to modeling and create the relationships. So for date table and sales part table, I decided to link the date table with the order table, for instance. And then salesperson with salesperson ID. Okay. Now, before I proceed to do anything else, I just want to double check that my date table is properly linked with the sales part table. So I'll just bring the corresponding date fields from both tables and see if they are properly aligned. Order date. Okay. So it seems I was right. Something is wrong somewhere. They're not properly aligned. Let me just go back to check. I'll probably have to go back to the source script to look at what I did. Maybe I did something wrong. Can you see my screen? I don't know if I'm presenting anything at the moment.
No, nothing is showing.
Oh, wait, give me a minute. Okay, how about now?
Yes, we see the Synapse Analytics.
Okay, so let me just check. I think what happened was this is not coming up as a date object. Let me just change the data type. There you go, and alter. So I'll just go back to Power BI and refresh. So I go to transform data and look for sales fact table. So as you can see, it's Power BI is even seeing the date field. It's seeing both of them as text instead of dates. Now that I even think about it, it was only the order date that I changed to an actual date object. But if I click on refresh, okay, ship. Oh, was it? I think it was ship date that actually changed the data type to date. So I have to go back to the source scripts and change it. I could also do it here, but as much as possible, I try to push a lot of the transformations to the SQL side as compared to bringing it to Power BI. I find it neater, and sometimes it can actually save you loading unnecessary things on Power BI. Okay, so class this as date and I alter. All right. Oh, I have a question. Do you guys see me presenting the transform page?
Yes, when you went to cast the data as date, right?
Yes, but there's also the transform page for Power BI.
No, the Power Query side, we are not.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Wait, give me a minute. Do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So when the first time I clicked on it, what happened was both order dates and ship dates were coming up as text. And the reason why I know that is because it's showing ABC here. So it means it's seeing it as a string or as a text. So when I went back to Synapse and I casted the ship date to date type, and I refreshed the preview here, it showed up as ship date. So now if I click on refresh again, it will pick up the updates that I made to the other dates and show it as a date object. So there you go. Then I close and apply. Let me just share the Power BI screen itself. Okay, then I click on refresh here. All right, so now it's perfectly aligned. Okay. So let's say a request came in from the sales department. They want to know how much sales they've made so far. We can do that by just looking at unit price. Then create a measure. So say sum of unit price. So let's say they're not necessarily looking for total sales. They're looking for the individual sales of everything that's been, or rather the sale of one item for everything that's been sold. So we just say sum of unit price is equal to unit price. Now this is a measure on its own. Now let's say another department, maybe a department for tires and wheels, they want to see sales specifically for their own department, for their own product. If we go to product table and we bring in product name, for instance, I believe we have tires and wheels somewhere here. Let me just search in the filter pane. Tire. Okay, so let's say they want to get the sales of maybe tires and wheels. Now, since we have multiple products that have tires and wheels in their names, we just use dark query to just pull those products that have tires and wheels in their name. Okay, so using the calculate function. You can see here we have to use the product table because that's where we have the information of the various product names. String tires. Let me see. Yeah, and then or I'll just copy this and place here wheels. Now if I were to drag this here, okay, so there you go. So as you can see, it's returning just sales of items that contain either tires or wheel. Although looking at this, it's only wheel I see. Let me think. I don't think there's any product that contains tires. I think it's just tire. Okay, there you go. So that just answers that particular question. Now, let's say another department came and they said they want to know sales that were made in relation to maybe women's products or something. So this is a different department now. Once again, we can come here, we can create a new measure. So in a similar fashion to what we did for tire and wheel. So we can say some men's items. Again, calculate some unit price, enter string, product name, so if I drag this here, and this is just me just confirming that yes, the measure is working appropriately, and there you go. So anything that has women in the name of the product, it brings out the sale. Now, we've pretty much responded to like 2 different departments and sort of what they are looking for. If we now have those departments, so they had like maybe data analysts who want to rely on this data set for them to access it, and this is where the power of Power BI data sets come from. If I click on publish, and also first of all, it's asking me to save. So I'll just say sales data, for instance. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you see me trying to publish to the Power BI workspace.
Yes, it's visible.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll just publish to this Kolade test workspace. Yeah, there you go. So it's published. If I go to Power BI app workspace now, so there you have it here on the sales. We have the sales data that I just created and published within this workspace. Now, let's say a particular data analyst comes to me and says, oh, they need this data as they want to build the dashboard around tires and wheels. I can just simply share this with them. So what I go to, or what I do, I go to manage permissions, and I want to add user. Oh, I already have the user available to use the data set. So what happened here is this was the email address I used to publish the app. Now, let's say there's another data analyst that comes. He already happens to have access to this workspace. He's able to go to Power BI on his own end and then pull the data into Power BI, and he starts to build his own dashboard. So I'll just show you how that is done. If I open a new Power BI, sheet, so let me just share this. I'm trying to present it, but it's taking time to come up. Not sure why. Okay, so here we go. I'll just sign out of this of my previous account, and I'll sign into the new one. So here we go. So let's just imagine this is a different data analyst. He's logging into this. He's logging into his account, and now he wants to rely on the data that I built. He just simply comes here, clicks on Power BI datasets, and then here he has access to sales data, and he connects to it. So what happens is this particular dashboard now has a direct query to the Power BI dataset that was built. And as a result, he doesn't have to stress himself to build all those measures that I've built and created. So let's say, for instance, he just wants to pull the sum of the units sales that has been made so far. Maybe he wants to see it by date, for instance. And there we have it. So he has already built the dashboard based on what I had already done previously. Now, if, for instance, a new request comes in. So, we've been working with unit price. Let's say another department now comes and says, no, they want to see like maybe the total sales, or they want to see the gross profit, for instance. Now, in this data, we don't have gross profit anywhere. We also don't have total sales. What happens is I, as the original creator of the dataset, will go back to my source script and make the edits, then publish those edits, and then the data analyst will have to come here and then refresh the data set, and those changes will be reflected. So let's quickly do that. If I go back to the Synapse workspace, now to compute how much was actually how much the product was bought for. I think there was a line called line total. Is it line total? Yes, it's line total. So instead of calling line total, I'll call it total sales. So let me just check what's in it. Okay, so here we go. I click on alter to update the view. Now I'll have to go back to Power BI, going back to the original sales data, dashboard that I built. Okay, this is still connected to the original account where I created the data set. And then I come here and I refresh preview for fact table. Okay, so we have total sales here. Then I click on close and apply. And then I refresh. Okay. So the next thing I do is publish once again. So I'm publishing to that same workspace for the change to reflect. So it warns me that there's already a data set there. So I just click on replace. Right. And then if I switch to the other dashboard, the one that is being built by the other data analyst. Here we go. And then I will click on refresh. So you see it here, total sales already reflects here. So if I wanted to see total sales by maybe product, for instance, just find the product table, product name, and here we go. So this is just like a brief explanation of what can be done, the power behind Power BI data sets. Because of our past time, I'll have shown like a situation where maybe we're pulling data from another source, like maybe if I manually inputted.
Just to chime in,
okay.
You can. We are okay. If you need to take more time, no problem.
Okay. I think I'll just show one more feature. So let's say the sales data also has location information, so where the sales was made. And for some weird reason, that particular the territory data itself is not available on Synapse. So maybe it's something you have to manually input or you have to pull it in from Excel. You could actually do that on the original Power BI data set, publish that, and then the other data analysts can just pull it into their own data sets and work with it. So we'll just quickly do that right now. If we're to go back to the Synapse workspace, I didn't bring in the location of the sales. So there's a territory ID field. Okay, and let's say we need to create like an Excel worksheet that has the territory data we are looking for. So going to, sorry, what I present is still showing the Synapse workspace, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. You should be seeing the sales data now.
Yes, we see Power BI.
Yes. So once again, if I go to transform data and I refresh on the fact table, refresh preview. Okay, so we have territory ID. Now, someone sends you an Excel sheet with the territory information. Let's say it's a CSV format. This is here. Okay, so here we go. And this is the territory data. Now I'm going to close and apply. I need to implement the updates. So it brought in territory brought in the territory table, but I didn't bring in the territory ID here, so I need to refresh. Okay, now working on the relationships in case, oh, beautiful. That's already picked up the relationship automatically. Now, once again, I'll publish this change. But before I publish, let's just assume that maybe a department in, let me see all the names here, all the countries we have here. A department in maybe Germany want to see how much sales has occurred in their own department or in their own country. I go here, create a new measure once again. Some sales retreat. Ideally, I'll prefer to use the ID to filter to Germany. So I'll need to find out what Germany's, the territory for Germany, what it is. So Germany is 8. What's 8? Germany. Okay. So there we go. So I go ahead to click on publish. Okay, so it's done publishing. I go back to the other dashboard. And then I refresh. Now, another major advantage of this is if you are working with large data sets, when you have that singular universal data set, the dashboards that connect to it, because they're connecting via direct query, they are of such smaller size. So you could have like a Power BI data set that is like 1 gig, and then the dashboards that connect to it, they might just be like maybe 4 MB, 10 MB, simply because they are connecting through direct query. So you're also saving a lot of space, and also the fact that you don't have to do a full refresh on the dashboards that are connecting via live direct query. They just do a direct query to the original data set that's done all the loading. So you're saving both space and resources. So here we have sales in Germany. So yeah, that's just a brief presentation, if we want to call it brief, on how we can use Power BI data sets to distribute data and also increase efficiency across the data analytics units in various organizations. So it's basically a combination of data engineering, data visualizations, just bringing different aspects together to provide to create a more efficient workplace. So
you probably have noticed that we are lining the question up already for you.
Yeah, one just popped up now.
3.
Yes. So if yeah, I'm open to questions now.
Okay. Just to also mention to people in the house, you can raise your hand if you want me to unmute you or give you ability to speak directly. But also you can type your questions, just anything you want, just wave your hand and I will notice that you want me to promote you. Thanks a lot for the session. It's man, I've been learning. If you ask me, I think I've learned a lot of things that are not even Power BI in this year's session. So it's well jam-packed, it's loaded. And then to go to the questions that already are there, let's start with so I'll start with the number one. So Power BI data sets, this sharing of data sets across reports. Like I know that whenever we pick it, right, we don't even get the modeling side pop up in Power BI anymore, and the question is just to ask, the advantage, you've made it clear, but do you know of some limitations? I don't want to say disadvantage, it will just be scenarios where if one needs one, I mean, things that one will lose access to as a user if I use a data set, versus I'm just pulling the direct, view, maybe things that I might lose access to that I should be aware of.
The one I've noticed so far, and it's a bit annoying, is, let me share my screen again. So you see this is the original data set.
Yes.
Now, here I said sum of unit price.
Yes.
Like when I told you that maybe another request came in and they don't want to see sum of unit price, they want to see all the sales. Normally on Power BI, when you have this, when you brought this out, so you've already created your charts. So let's say sum of unit price by product. If I were to change this to, if I were to change the name to sum of sales, for instance, or no, better still, let's do it this way. So we have this chart, sum of unit price by product name. Now, if I have to copy this particular chart into the other dashboard, we are expecting the same result, right? So I come here, I paste it. It's working. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Now, someone now comes and says, no, they don't want to see sum of unit price by product name. They want to see sum of total sales. So let's say I now go back to the original data set. On normal day on Power BI, if you just change this to sum of sales, and I change this to total sales, you see that's automatically changed here.
Yes.
Now, if I were to publish this, okay, so it's done publishing, and then I go to the other dashboard, you would expect that once you click on refresh, this should just pick up the change. But see what happens. It shows an error. So apparently, whenever you make changes to a data point, if you've already used it on the charts in the other dashboard, that change won't reflect. It just that particular data point just disappears. It doesn't reflect the change. So what will now happen now is I will have to now manually come here and bring sum of sales to get back on track. So that's sorry.
Just to ask, what if it was just the formula itself, not the formula name? Maybe one didn't change the formula name.
Yeah, if it was just the formula itself, it will flow through.
Okay.
But if you change the name,
one should be careful not to change the name. The other one I also it used to be the thing that makes me like, no, I don't want to use data set. So if you look to your left, you'll see that on that place where we'll go to data model and to the left of the screen, I think yours is even there's one more view. If you go model view, there's one that is missing. There's that table part. Report, report it doesn't show anymore.
Yes, that's also part of the drawbacks.
Is it report or table. What was it? Let me just get
Yes,
it.
the summary table. Where?
Yeah, that one has it.
You're talking about this, right? Sorry, the data view.
Data view. Oh, great. Yes, this
yes.
one.
Yeah, it's missing in the other one. Yeah.
But has it ever been a practical problem? Because I'm guessing because of the usage case, we want to harmonize all the changes in one place, right? So probably we just, does it mean that I should just request to the owner of the other one, or if I have access to just do whatever I do there? Okay, maybe it's not a disadvantage. Maybe it's just the way it should work.
Trust me, if you are working in a big organization with massive data, with tons of requests, I don't know if you've been in a situation where you built a dashboard in one particular way. Maybe accounting, they are looking at sales in a particular way. Then marketing is looking at sales in another way.
Different way.
Then there's now clash in terms of the uniformity of the data. This can help resolve all those kind of issues because you have one single source of truth.
That's true. Okay.
And then when you have a situation that you don't have as many experienced data analysts, this can actually help them because they just go in, connect to the data and start plotting. They don't have to worry their head about, maybe I want to write one complex SQL query, or I need to write one complex DAX query. So those are some of the advantages that this brings with it.
Okay, thanks. So I'll skip to some questions that are from different other people, so I don't prioritize only the one that's from the house. I see. Okay, I'm reading. Ashenafi is asking, well, it's not related to what you said, but I'm going to read it because anyway, you might have an answer for him or her. How do we give access to he says, how do we give access to Azure Space to other team members? I'm guessing it's talking about the Azure Synapse environment you are in. But do you get the question? Or do you want to take a look at it directly yourself too? Maybe you might figure out exactly the question. I know you. Do you want to see the question too? Maybe if you stop sharing and you look at the.
I'm looking at it now. How do we give access to Azure Space? So is it talking about the Synapse space or the Power BI space?
I guess so, because that's the only place you've gone to today in Azure, right? It's just that Azure Synapse you've gone to. So I'm guessing, yes, that's that Azure Synapse workspace. How do we probably give other people access to it?
How best to answer that? So, well, basically, if you are within the same organization, and depending on the what kind of subscription that your organization has, they can grant access to different users. And then at the same time, as they are granting access, they might limit certain users from access to certain workspaces or containers. And when I mean containers, let me just go back. So this is what I mean by container. It's like saying a folder, more or less, because that's where the various files are kept. So for security reasons or whatever, they could limit access to different users. But at the end of the day, the organization that usually determines who gets access to what.
So while you are even here, he or she asked a follow-on question on what's the difference between the Parquet file type and the CSV file types? What's like the pros and cons?
Well, from my experience, Parquet file type is more stable. CSV files, if you want to query a CSV file with SQL, it can be very frustrating at times. There are situations where you might run the script and it won't use the first row as the header. It will bring in its own header. So you're seeing things like C1, C2, C3, things like that. And then as a result, it might not maintain the data type or that particular field. Then from my past experience working with CSV, there are situations where a field, maybe if a field has a particular kind of punctuation mark, maybe a comma or a semicolon, you might see a field pushing into another field. So if for instance we have 3 fields, we have maybe ID, name, and salary. You could find it. You might see the first 5 rows, you look fine. Then you get to the 6th row, you might see the ID as 6. Then you see a name. Maybe you see Michael. Then in the salary, you see Jackson and 1,000 there together because of the way the file has been saved. So CSV files are not as stable as Parquet files. And me personally, I prefer working with a Parquet file, basically. So yeah, so Parquet files are more stable, they are more reliable overall.
I have experienced some differences, but it was funny. My own was almost like to the opposite. So I was working on an Azure ML project, and so we were using. I think we were using the data engineer guy was pushing it through data pipeline to Azure Data Factory. So for me to an EDLS, and I was picking. So at first it was pushing them as Parquet files. So for some of the things I was doing on the Azure machine learning, so there's this Azure machine learning workspace and also designer. It was funny. Yeah, within Azure suite of products. So I was having one funny issue with the Parquet file one. It wasn't, but so I had to tell him to add another converter to just, on the Azure Data Factory convert to CSV. But aside that, I think that one was probably something due to the particular particular library that I'm using, because when they developed those libraries, I think they were expecting CSV package kind of a new standard for them. So the other thing, so that's on the con, but on the pro, many pros, I saw that the file size were much smaller with Parquet file. If you are trying to run queries faster. So I heard it's a columnar storage kind of format. So it compresses much better. Then when you mention query too, I noticed that things that I'm running that works nicely with the Parquet files, they load faster. Even Power BI, when I connect to the CSV, it takes forever for I think they were maybe 5 gig. The file is bigger, it takes forever. With the Parquet files, they were really faster. Yes. So that was what I noticed.
Parquet files are less stressful. The only con for me that I've noticed so far with Parquet files is in the column header, it doesn't give room for space. So instead of space, you might put a dot. So for instance, if we look at, I think, the calendar and the dates object, you see it's physical dot here. So I'm suspecting the original file or wherever it was coming from, it was physical year.
Oh, maybe there's some space in the names.
Yeah, we put a dot there. So that's like the only disadvantage I've seen so far. So
take a look at it again, because that was the only thing that forced me to now tell them to add a converter to CSV for that project. And it was only in that place. Every other place I was connecting to the data, I was using the Parquet version. It was only for that ML library one. Okay, so I'll go to other sets of questions. Someone was asking about the recording. I know. So we've prepared, we've recorded the session. You'll get the recording tomorrow. So I'm going to ask, you heavily use Azure Synapse, so it's kind of obvious from this demo you've shared. And I want to ask, would like to hear your own opinion, from the perspective of someone in the Power BI space, right? What extra advantage, or what's the advantage that comes with you now beginning to integrate with Azure Synapse and use it, the way you use it extensively? Even like you could have done this demo, I'm sure, if you wanted to, without Azure Synapse, right? So for you to use it, it means that it's become like a second nature, and probably you've seen a lot of advantage to having to work across, having things integrate to your Power BI from here. So we'd like to hear your own opinion about the use of Azure Synapse for a Power BI person.
Yeah, so first of all, it's a Microsoft product. And if you're a Microsoft heavy organization, you could actually have related accounts that are running both the Power BI workspace and the Synapse workspace. So it's a seamless connection. That's one major advantage. And if you want to refresh, for instance, maybe you want to schedule refresh, things like that, because they are similar systems talking to each other, it's very easy to execute that refresh. So, and of course, generally, one advice I have for people going to analytics is you need to look into cloud. Cloud is the future. Like most organizations are moving their data into the cloud. So those are just some of the things or some of the reasons why I'm pro cloud. I'm used to working with Synapse. Those are just some of the advantages I've seen so far with using Synapse, working with the cloud, using it with Power BI.
Okay, and just to mention, it seems for you to have spin off your own, is either maybe you are also into trading like us, or probably you are someone who, because it costs money to spin off your own as your Synapse environment. So the question I'm just asking is, typically, what scenarios will you, on a cost to benefit analysis, give to a company, not for learning purpose now, not even for demonstration or consulting purposes, but there's a company, and at what stage will they need to consider as your Synapse versus just doing the minimal? What if I minimally have an SQL in the cloud? I minimally just have only what I must put in the cloud. I don't have to have these Azure Synapse workspace where I'm provided with, what if I'm not going to ever use the lake side of it, use the ML side, or use any of all the other things, and it's just the SQL side I'm using. I'm not touching the Apache Spark or anyone. Why not just do the minimal lowest version SQL on Azure and just move on with my life and not have to incur costs as a small company? Like, well, what are the advantages, that you think that will make you to want to tell a company to consider Synapse?
So I think I'm trying to wear two hats here. I'm trying to wear the hat of the CEO and the technical person. I think, of course, the first thing you consider is costs. Ideally, if possible, just move everything to the cloud. But I mean, there's costs to consider. I guess part of what I'll look into is probably maybe the size of the data, the sensitivity of the data. And for instance, when I mean sensitivity, do you have let's say it's data that has to do, maybe that contains things like SIN for us in Canada, or NIN for people in Nigeria, for instance. What kind of security do you have around that? If, for instance, that data is on-prem, do you have backup for it? What's the cost to the company if something happens to that data and it goes down? Will it cost the company to pack up? So you need to weigh those costs and then compare it with what happens when you move your data into the cloud. And also you need to consider what solution is best. So for instance, and I think I stand corrected, but last I checked, I think, is this Snowflake? Snowflake is a cloud, alternative to Azure and AWS. I think it's one of the cheapest in the market. And I know a lot of companies are also looking into that as an alternative to just going with Microsoft because of the cost. So those are some of the things you need to consider. Another thing is, if you're Microsoft heavy, you easily get support from the Microsoft team in terms of help with maybe setting up your workspace or having meetings with them. If you're now thinking of going into more advanced things like machine learning, you can also integrate it with data automation programs like Power Automate, Power Apps. So that's just the advantage from the Microsoft side. I'm more familiar with the Microsoft side, although I've also worked with AWS before. So what I would say is it's neither here nor there. It's just about looking at the costs to the company. So what happens if I continue on-prem? Is it sustainable? If the data should go down, What happens? Is there a backup somewhere? So those are some of the questions you need to ask before you can now make that final decision.
Okay, thank you. Are you chance for 2 more questions? I don't know your time. I'm looking. I know you two have your own agenda, so we don't just. I'm sure all the questions we have, apart from our 2 other questions, is just one more. Should I maybe bundle the questions together and you answer them at once, or do you have like 9 more minutes to spare with us?
Yeah, sure. I can still be here for the next 9 minutes. No problem.
All right. So one other question is, as regards SQL, so you actually do beyond even the what most of us advise to Power BI people to know, which is always just the select, know how to run select SQL. You create views, we also expect people to know how to join, but I want to just point out that in just these few small demo that you've used more SQL than what we used to normally just expect people who are not SQL people to just focus on. So my question is, what's your opinion on what the right amount of SQL a Power BI, professional should be very, very good at executing?
My personal advice, keep learning. Like, don't limit yourself, because the market is getting more competitive. So if let's say a company can say they are looking for a Power BI developer, if you tell them you can do select star and someone else comes and tells them you can write a procedure, they will go with the guy that can write the procedure, because he is going to provide more value. So as much as possible, you just have to keep learning more and more. It's also one of the reasons why, even as a data analyst, you are not even a data engineer, you need to start thinking of how you can even do some data engineering tasks, because, as I said, the market is more competitive. So the question, when you're in your interviews, you need to sell yourself to show that, see, I know this for a data analyst position, but I can do much more. It means you are able to provide more value at the end of the day. So my advice is just keep learning, keep improving. If you learn a new SQL syntax, good for you. I think that's personal advice that I have for everyone.
Thank you. So now the last 2 questions. One is maybe I'll combine the 2 so you can answer them for as much minutes you have to answer. So question 1 is, we would like to hear your interesting journey, your unique journey to where you are. I don't, except you are someone who started from your mother's womb. Most people had a point where they didn't know anything. So it would be nice to get to hear your story from when you didn't know anything about all of this thing, and then you are now here, the path you took. Then the second question is your advice for anyone starting out now. What is the right process they should follow, how to overcome the noise. There's a lot of noise too, and also how to even get their attention in the industry and get a footing and begin to even work with all of this knowledge if they get the knowledge eventually. So those are the 2 questions, and then we'll release you. Thank you very much already for the extra minutes. Thanks.
Yeah. So how I started out, I'll say, I'm just thinking how best I'll describe it. So I've always had an interest in programming, in writing scripts, even as far back as my university days. So during my university days, I was doing like a part-time work with a software company, and that was the first time I was ever exposed to SQL. It was even my SQL I was exposed to. So I wrote some SQL statements then. Then my interest in software development started to increase. I did some web development after school during my NYSC. Then I got a job with a consulting firm. But when I got in, I worked in audit for like a year. And then I heard there was a data analytics unit. Now, one of the things that even attracted me to the data analytics unit was, what I heard about the unit was there were coding, they were writing programming stuff. But at the same time too, because it was a consulting firm, they're also doing business stuff. So for me, I felt it was a good way to combine both business and technical skills together. Because as a data analytics professional, you need to understand the business, and then that way you're able to know what to pull, what kind of data to pull, what scripts to write to pull it together. So from there, I just joined the data analytics unit, and I actually had a family friend who I used to reach out to just for advice and things like that. And he was also one of the people that encouraged me to pursue that opportunity. And one thing that I picked up from him was you need to keep learning, you need to keep improving. Like you can't rest on your oars at any point in time, especially when you're in IT or technical or tech space, more or less. There's always something new coming up. So from there, I just started learning more about SQL. When I joined the unit, we were using a tool called ClickView and ClickSense. At that time, Power BI wasn't very popular. It was about maybe a year later that Power BI started catching more steam in terms of popularity. Then we switched to that. And one other thing that really helped myself and the unit, because the unit was still very young then. We were one of the first people to go into the market selling analytics to our clients. So we had to work with different kinds of infrastructure. So we worked with ERP systems, we worked with SQL, Oracle, and as a result, we became tool agnostic, and we're very innovative, because if there's one thing, in fact, if there's one thing everyone should take away from this presentation, is the fact that you cannot know everything, but you'll be fine as long as you know how to Google it. So there are tons of stuff that we did not know. We just Google it, find the solution, implement it, and keep it pushing. So that was what helped me as a person to grow, and also being able to rely on team members who were also trying to improve themselves, be innovative, come up with solutions to all sorts of challenges we're facing at our clients, when we're working with our clients. So from there, afterwards, I relocated to Canada, continued working as a data analyst. But because of my vast experience, I've also found myself working on machine learning projects. I've also worked as a data engineer. In my current role, I'm not just doing dashboarding. I'm also implementing pipelines, doing data engineering stuff, doing data warehouse related work as well. So it's more of, whenever a challenge comes up, I don't shy away from it. I go at it, I attack it, because you really can't lose. You just keep learning more and more and more, and it makes you more valuable at the end of the day. So that has been my journey so far. And in terms of the advice I have for people that want to, is it people that are starting the journey, or?
Yes.
So, I think the first thing I'll say is the data analytics field is very broad, generally. So we have people who specialize in visualization. We have those who are data engineers. We have machine learning specialists. We have people who specialize in deploying machine learning models. But ideally, I usually say the most important thing for everyone in the data analytics space to know is SQL. I don't think you can run away from it. Everybody needs to know how to write a SQL script. Then another thing is, depending on where you are in the world, you could, and this is something I do, you could Google data analytics roles and just see what they're asking for. That way you're able to have an idea of what's going on in the market and what you need to learn to make sure that you are employable, or even if you are employed, just to make sure that you stay ahead of the curve, to ensure that you continue to provide value to your organization. you want to get to a point where, God forbid, they are looking for people to fire, people to lay off. You are the last person on their mind because of how much value you are bringing in. So, for instance, in the Canadian market, Power BI is very popular. Most times when people approach me, I'll say, "Oh, try and learn Power BI or SQL for starters if you just want to just break into the market." And as you are working to try and have a portfolio of what you've done, so maybe like a website or a GitHub repository where you store your scripts to show that you can do, you actually can do what you say you can do. Because, for instance, in case of Canada now, I've noticed they value experience a lot, probably more than even certifications. If you can show, you can prove to them that you can do it, it's a good way to start. And most importantly, just network. You don't know who knows who. You don't know what you can learn from anyone. So those are just some of the bits of advice I can offer.
Thank you very much. And so we have come to the end of today's exciting one. You really taught us a lot. You beyond even Power BI. I'm thinking, not that I'm thinking, I know that I will reach out to you. We will like to hear you present on some of all these auxiliary tools, because like you said, we should not just be narrow-minded in our learning,
Yes.
So if it is even SQL or anything that you use, and so that you don't have to spend too much time to come up with content for us. We don't want to stress you, but something that for you it's a breeze to just quickly slap some things together. You'll find out that for many of us it will be eye-opening, that we are learning that, and we are getting to get some motivations to combine it with our Power BI knowledge. So I'm very, very grateful. I know the audience too, they are. It's just unfortunate that the settings for the event doesn't make them to be able to unmute directly. We've had a nasty experience 2 years ago where someone started hijacked the session, started showing his own screen and all sort of things that should not happen. So thank you very much, and we look forward to another session from you. I will connect with you later when you've gone back to your normal day life, and you can give us a date in future to talk about anything else. We'll always be happy to have you once again. And to the audience, to everyone who has joined us today, thank you very, very much. And those who are asking for the recording, you'll see them. Some people joined and had to leave. Sunday, people have appointments. So, but I was watching. Overall, I think in unique count, we got to about 20. So people leaving, going, people leaving, going. So thank you very, very much. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. No worries. I'm glad to be here and to help out in any way I can.
Yes, thanks. For the person asking about the recording, I'll put it in the chat box. Okay, maybe I'll just do it now so that once I put it in, I'll put the link of where you see the recording, then I'll end this. So it's a YouTube link. I have 3 screens, so I'm trying to just go to the one that has it, and then I'll dump it. Okay, I've gotten one of them. So recording will be here. Recording will be here by tomorrow. With that, I'll say thank you very much again to Kolade for the very wonderful session. I tell you, I've learned a lot. This is probably the best session I've had in a long time. I want to say this year, but I don't know. But to me, I think this year, the whole of this year, and I'm very grateful that you've joined us. You've accepted to present to us. Thank you to everyone. To have a very wonderful week ahead. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. Bye.